First, though, we are here to help you make sense of what goes in your garden. And it starts with what seems like a simple concept that can actually get really confusing really fast: how to read a plant tag. It seems there are so many considerations, lots of decisions about each item and where to place it, how to care for it. It's something you need to master in order to get gardening. And Boe Flint came along to help us sort it all out. It's so good to see you.
Great to see you again.
We're approaching your favorite season.
Oh yeah, busy time.
Here we are. Help us do our best in the garden. The thing about plant tags, I think, part of the confusion comes because there are so many different types of tags. Is that fair enough?
I mean, just look at this handful I got here.
Yeah.
There are hundreds, maybe even thousands of different plant tags, and none of the two are the same. They're all different, and they all have different information about the plant. And so, yeah, there's a lot of questions with plant tags.
So let's take this tag as an example that I have here in my pretty little hand. It's obviously been blown up for my eyes, not yours, right? Talk us through this. Give us the basic information that we need to know at a glance when we first look at this guy.
Okay, so on the front of the tag, you're going to have the common name, which is a hydrangea. Now, by common name, I mean, take me for instance. My last name is Flint. So the common name for the hydrangea is there's a large number of them. Flints, I have a huge family. There's a large number of us.
Okay.
So you got the Flint family, you got the hydrangea family, and then you have the variety name.
So when I read "let's dance," I think, okay, let's throw a party, but no, that's actually part of the family name you're talking about.
That's correct. That's the unique flower that's on the tag.
That's the bow.
That's the bow.
The bow
or the George Clooney.
It's the Boe and the Flint. It's the George and the Clooney. It's the Brooke and the Walker. I get it. Okay.
So yeah, you have the variety name and the common name.
Okay, that's helpful. Another thing we hear a lot about is actually the hardiness zone, and I've got that map here. This looks like a coloring project from 3rd grade,
That's
and
right.
It gets a little confusing to even look at this and consider our options.
Absolutely. So when you first look at it, you're like, where am I? What does this yellow in Utah mean right here in the screen?
We're kind of a rainbow of colors.
Yep, and what that is telling us is the climate in your area, the zone. They call it a zone. And so for Utah, we're in a zone 4, 5, 6, maybe southern Utah 7. And on the back of the tag, you're going to find a zone. And that's going to tell you this is a zone 4, so you know, hey, that grows great in Utah.
That works for me. That works for my yard. How important is that really, the hardiness factor?
Very important, because say I go to California or the East Coast and I see these beautiful tropical flowers and I'm thinking to myself, I want that in my yard. I come back home to Utah, plant it in my yard, and they die. Why are they dying? It's because the zone is different here. We don't have as high humidity. And so when you see a pretty flower, something that you just love, you got to make sure it grows in your zone.
But are local nurseries really going to stock plants that don't work here?
Sometimes they do, and a lot of times you can get away with it inside your home. But outside, no, like a bromeliad. Bromeliads are beautiful. They work great inside the home. Outside, they'll get burned up even if they're in the shade because it's so dry here.
Now here's where I start to go cross-eyed and my head starts to spin a little bit when we get into like the lighting recommendations. Because here, I mean, sometimes you'll see part sun and part shade on the same tag.
That's correct.
What does that mean? What do we do?
That's correct. So if you look right here, these are full shade plants, which means no direct sunlight. So they need to be kind of on the eastern side of your home. Okay, so when the sun comes up, maybe a little bit of light will shine on them, but that's it.
Got it.
They gotta be in the shade.
Okay.
And then you may get something like this, that's a part shade. And part shade would be 4 to 6 hours of morning sun only.
Okay, does the time of day matter? Morning versus evening sun?
Because if you get afternoon sun, if you think about between 8 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock, it's a lot cooler, even with sunlight.
That's true.
And then when you go from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock, it's a lot hotter. You get a lot more direct sunlight, it'll burn the plants up.
So pay attention when it says that.
Very close attention, yep.
What if I do see part sun, part shade, all on the same tag? How does the morning and evening time zone play
You're
a factor?
okay in the part sun and part shade if you're 4 to 6 hours only.
Okay.
If it's any more than that, it's probably going to get burned up.
It's going to get zapped.
Yep.
All right, spacing. Talk to us about what we need to know about spacing the plants and what the tag tells us that we should really listen in on.
Spacing is very important because you may see a plant, for instance, like this one right here, and you think, wow, that's going to look beautiful. And I'm going to plant it, and I'm going to put a couple annuals next to it, and then all of a sudden, this gets huge and overtakes all my annuals. So you want to make sure on the back of the tag, you're going to see a spacing or size that tells you what is this plant going to do? Is it going to grow straight up? Is it going to grow out? And it'll even have the dimensions of it. It'll get probably 24 inches wide, or it may get up to 6 feet high. And you'll see those dimensions on the back of the tag.
Okay, and so we follow those exactly.
Exactly, because it will get large, or sometimes it will stay small, and that'll give you an idea of how to plant it in your garden.
Does it matter, annuals, perennials? Does it make a difference how we space them?
Doesn't make a difference because they're all different.
Okay.
And so you want to just make sure you read that tag. Now, sometimes you may have a garden and this is just going to grow a little bit. It may take years to get huge. And so you're worried about, you know, what do I fill in that space with?
We're kind of in that case right now at my own home. It looks a little empty because the plants are so small.
So go ahead and plant you some annuals. Get you some super petunias.
To fill in those gaps.
To fill in the gaps, because they're not going to last till next year.
Okay. Sometimes I've seen the word habit on a tag. What does that mean?
The habit is it going to grow straight upright?
Okay.
Or is it going to grow out? And so if I see, you know, maybe this flower right here and I think, oh, that would look beautiful in front of my window.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, it's 6 feet tall and covering up my window.
Right.
I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I should have read the tag to see how tall it'll grow.
Gotcha.
So that's what it means by habit.
And if
how big is it going to get?
If the tag text talks about drainage, does that then affect how we plant and how we space?
Yep, like in Utah, we have, if you're living close to the mountains, you got a lot of rock under your ground. If you're more in the valley or out towards the lake, you got a lot of clay. And so those roots, it's hard for them to grow in that clay. You may have to dig all that out because you may see your flowers sitting in a puddle of water after you've watered it, and it may sit there all day because the clay isn't soaking it in, which will give you root rot, stem rot, and that's why your plants die.
Don't want that.
So get some topsoil in there, mix it all up, and then you'll have a better job.
But what would you say is the biggest mistake Utah gardeners in particular make when it comes to spacing and planting?
I would say definitely out in the valley, the clay. You got to get that topsoil in there and get it mixed up. Get some fertilizer mixed in there with it. Sizing again, make sure you read the sizing because you'll have a beautiful flower and you have all these other flowers around it, annuals or anything.
Right.
And if it overtakes them, you're covering up all the color you wanted.
Okay, really quickly, bloom time. Can we count on what the tag tells us?
Yes, but you got to make sure you read that because, for instance, again, like this flower will say, it blooms in the late summer. Now, sometimes you might buy it from a greenhouse and it's already in bloom in the spring. You're like, why is this bloomed in the spring already? Well, the reason is we have in our greenhouses, we can cheat it. We can make it.
Force the climate.
So next year, in the springtime, where's all my flowers? Well, on the back of the tag, it'll say late summer. Now, other flowers like this one right here.
You tricky growers, you pull one on us with that.
That's right, this Wigeria, it'll flower all spring, summer, and fall long. So you can read the tag and it'll say that. It'll tell you exactly the time period so this will just keep blooming over and over.
Okay.
So that's important information to find on your tag if you love that flower power and want it all season long.
And we do, yes, please. Bo, thank you so much. This was super helpful.
You bet.
Very informative to help us get to the bottom and understand that tag text. I'll feel smarter next time I go to the greenhouse. Thanks.